Okay, I officially have a shit show on my hand. Ranger chassis. Here's all the parts stripped off of Gilligan. Springs, gearbox, duff brackets, engine parts, electrical, plumbing, motor, all the electrical, engine harness, stereo system, anything with a wire going to it is in that box. Rear axle, rear suspension, transmission, transfer case, front axle, front suspension, steering, and there's this. I'll explain that. All right, so here's the deal. The front part of the chassis of the Ranger, there was a cross member for the leaf springs that was all welded there. We chopped it off. I did buy some steel, and I was going to rebuild the front of these frame horns to accept my front bumper. The cross member was cut out and modified. Nothing wrong with it other than for me to use all my Duff engine mounts and my Duff track bar bracket, which bolts over there. There's not enough material left, and I'll literally have to cut out that nice clean cross member there to make it all fit. There's the Duff track bar bracket. There's just simply not enough room there to do that. So I was at a crossroads on trying to decide what to do about this problem. Well, turns out the gentleman who bought Gilligan only body swapped it and did not use the frame. So he cut off the front frame of Gilligan and gave it back to me, and I will section it onto this chassis. This gives me the front frame horns that I don't have to rebuild. My bumper, my winch will bolt right back on. All of the existing holes are there for all of my bracketry, for the Duff coil buckets, the track bar. My bump stop cans are still welded on there. All I gotta do is power wash it, get it all nice and clean, and then figure out back here where I'm gonna make a little Z cut to section these in, and then I'll make some reinforcing plates for the inside and outside. So that, I know it sounds a bit intrusive, but it's going to save me a crap ton of work as opposed to trying to make all this work for me. So yeah, time to get cleaning, get marking, and get to cutting. Okay, so I got the old front subframe from Gilligan laid on top of the Truggy's chassis. And it's nice because they have these little pins that stick down, and there's a hole right above it for the next one, and that's how they stack these at the factory. So all I got to do is just drop it right on there, and it's lined up exactly where it needs to be. So anyway, I marked, I'm going to cut down through here, cut across, down, and that's my Z cut. And I measured everything out, same exact pattern down here. So that'll fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. And then what I'll do is on the back side of the frame rail, I'll put a plate, and that'll allow me to plug weld all this stuff together, get some more weld on it, and then when that's done, I'll put a plate on the outside, make a little fish plate, weld that on there too. So it'll be reinforced on both sides, and same on that side as well too. So yeah, gonna start cleaning this up. I power washed it, got it all nice and clean. We'll grind it all down to bare metal mostly, coat it with that core seal. And on this side you can see, whoops, same deal. That's how I'm going to cut that one. And that's how we'll section it all together. I like it. It's going to work out really nice. Because my old bump stop cans still on there. All the holes in here have already, for my Duff brackets, already all there. And I did order another set of these repair plates for these. I thought about just swapping the brackets, but that's grinding a lot of rivets. So the rest of that is in decent enough shape. After I grind all that rust out, clean it all up, I'll just weld that repair disc on there and should be good to go. But here is a good shot. You can see that's how much of that front frame horn was cut off. I was going to have to rebuild. So now I don't have to do that. So now my winch plate and my bumper will just bolt right back in place. Okay, here we go. Got the frame is chopped off. So I'm going to clean up all these edges inside and out. Grind it all down to bare metal as far in as I can, both sides. And then we will use the cherry picker here, hold it in place, and put a couple tacky tacks on it, and then burn it in. So it's going to work perfectly. All right, we got all the joints cleaned up, ground down. So we are ready to mate these together, clamp them up, get it leveled up and square, tack it up. All right, I think I got everything pretty much in place. Got some clamps on, holding everything together. There's a little bit of a spring action going on where everything didn't line up perfectly on its own, had to be clamped up in place. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple tacks on the top of the frame rail on each side. Then I'm going to pull those top clamps off, loosen, drop down the cherry picker some, and then the gap on the very bottom of the frame rail there. On the other side, I'll let the weight of the cross member kind of pull and close that gap up right there. It should be perfect. So let's bust out the welder and get to tacking. And there it is. It's all welded up. So now I'm going to go ahead and grind these up, clean them up. And then I'm going to cut some plates to go over top of that, weld them all in, and then anywhere there's a hole, go in the back side and fill those in too. Do that on both sides. So there it is. It's stuck together. All right, there it is. Just put a coat of the Seal on it. Comes out the jar or the jug white, goes on purple and dries black. So we have plates inside and outside, top of the frame rail, bottom of the frame rail. So there are 4 metal plates reinforcing each frame rail where I cut it. I think that's going to be plenty strong. So it's looking pretty good. I got the these they call them frame savers. Got those welded on. So there we go. Man, okay, so we got a frame to work with. Now I can actually put the motor, put the trans in it, figure out all the mounts for that. And man, before you know it, we'll be putting the cab back on the frame. Getting excited now. And I got a whole truckload of stuff going to the powder coater probably tomorrow. Okay, so one of the other things I'm going to try with this, I haven't heard of a whole lot of people doing this, but I did find it on the internet, so it's got to be true and it's got to work. Keeping the rear leaf spring suspension, obviously. I have the Deaver, I guess they're 5.5 inch lift springs for this. They are a 2.5 inch wide leaf spring. Now, to try something different, what I'm going to do is I found a replacement bushing for the front eye of the leaf spring. So what happens when you're articulating in a leaf spring suspension? The springs are clamped tight to the spring perches. So when the axle drops down or goes up, what's happening is the main leaf, it needs to twist to get that articulation. It doesn't just, the spring doesn't stay flat, it twists, and you can get into problems up on the main eye here where the main leaf will break from all that constant back and forth, back and forth. So what I found AFCO Racing makes a replacement bushing to go in the front eye of the leaf spring that articulates. It moves. And by my little gauge, I have 8 degrees of operating angle, I guess you can call it. So what I'm going to do is, this would be how the spring hanger goes on the frame. This is a full-size F-150 spring hanger. It's virtually the same bracket, but where this is 2.5 inches wide, this is 3 inches wide here. And this bushing, as you can see, it moves. It articulates. It's got a couple little misalignment spacers in there. With this bracket being 3 inches wide, that gives me room on either side of the main leaf spring, for this to move back and forth and not contact the bracket on either side, where if I stuck it in a 2.5 inch bracket like this one, the stock one here, it's going to bind the eye of the spring. The sides are going to contact this, and it isn't going to do anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind off all these rivets, knock off these stock hangers, and in place I'll bolt up these full-size F-150 hangers, and then these will get pressed into the front eye of my Deaver springs. You got a little snap ring that holds them in place, and I'm going to run these. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference, but every little bit of deflection and articulation I can get out of this, the better it's going to be, and it's going to be a lot easier on that Deaver spring. It'll allow some articulation in the bushing before it starts tweaking on the main leaf and forcing it to twist. So if it works, cool. If it doesn't, no big deal, but I'm all about trying something new and being different. So this is what I'm going to try on this setup, and we'll see how it works. And along with some other things I'm going to change back here as far as the shock placement. I'm going to do things a little different than what I had on the Bronco 2. So hopefully with this setup here on leaf springs, I'm hoping I can get 12 inches of suspension travel out of it. Had about 10 on the Bronco 2. Never really had a problem with it. The damn thing went everywhere I pointed it. But I think with this setup here, I can realistically get about 12 inches of suspension travel, which I think is going to be, I think that'll work really well for this truck with this new longer wheelbase. So we're going to try that and see how it works. Can't be a bad thing, right? So on this side, you can see I've already taken the rivets off, got the stock bracket off, so I'm left with the four holes here. Bottom two ones don't line up exactly with the bracket. I'll just have to re-drill it. No big deal, but the top two seem to line up pretty good. So I'll run down to the hardware store, get some good grade 8 hardware to bolt these back to the frame. And then on the rear, these fabricated hangers back here, these are going to stay 2.5 inches on the inside. So I'm going to have to unbolt them. And I'm going to put spacers back here to actually move these out to keep in line with the front hangers, so that I don't have the leaf spring doing anything weird. I want to keep everything nice and straight and in line. So I'll take those off, and I'll go ahead and make some spacers for them, and then space these out to match the front ones. Easy enough. So, big day today. Picked up all my parts from Powder Coat. Ho ho ho, look at that. Hammered red. Coil buckets, intake plate. Those are the shock mounts. These are the coil bucket. Radius arms, I'm not opening these up yet. There's the long arms all done up. Upper intake, wrinkle black. This looks sweet. Track bar bracket, same. It's gonna look really good under there. And both valve covers in matching hammered red. Had all this done at S&P Powder Coating and 4x4 Solutions up in Ecorse, Michigan. Hooked me up with this. Super fast turnaround. I could not be happier. And this stuff looks killer. So I think this red with black is going to look just awesome with the colors for the truck here. So very happy with that. Very happy with my choice. So now I can actually start bolting some suspension components to the truck. So let's do that. What the intake looks like with the plate on it. I like that. And the valve covers will match. It's gonna look sweet. Wish I could change that to 5.6, but oh well. All right, getting some stuff assembled. Here we got the coil buckets, shock brackets, got the shocks hanging, track bar bracket, that's all bolted on. I like it, I love this color. The color of the chassis, the red, the hammered silver I did the shocks in. Looks pretty damn good. I like it. Got some little details coming for that stuff too. I'll show you later. But yeah, there it is. It's going to look good. So while the motor was out, I decided to bust it down. It definitely needed a good cleaning. All the paint was flaking off. It was rusting. And I wanted to do a quick inspection on the motor. This motor, shortly after it was built last year at Silver Lake Sand Dunes, the oil line blew off and I lost oil pressure for about 3-4 seconds at wide open throttle. So I decided now was a perfect time to bust this thing down and check out the bottom end. So yesterday, didn't get it on film, but I had my engine builder come over and I pulled a main, pulled a rod, checked out the bearings on it, and luckily everything looks fine. So no damage done to the motor, everything's good to go. So we're just back into cleaning and reinstall mode right now. So got the block all cleaned up, shot some fresh paint on it. Had to put a new crank seal in it, it was leaking, painted up all this stuff. Oil pan sitting back there, that's all painted up. So motor's all good to go, and I'm gonna just keep cleaning up stuff, button it up, and we'll get it bolted to the transmission and get it in the chassis now that it's all done and ready. All right, getting this button back up. Got the lower intake on, got that all painted up. One of the valve covers is on. Looking good. So next, I'm gonna get the other valve cover on. Then we'll flip it and I'll get the oil pan on, harmonic balancer, stab the distributor, and it's basically ready to bolt to the trans. So, good progress, looking good. And there we go. Motor is in. Didn't really film this part of it yesterday, but got the motor all buttoned up, intakes on it, distributor stabbed, oil pan, balancer, all that's done. Oil filter, mount, the lines, the block. So I had to put the steering box on the chassis first, and sat the motor in. Nice thing is all the holes were already there, so the motor dropped right in place. Fits awesome. Love the way it looks. All the colors and everything look badass. I added a 1-inch phenolic spacer to the intake this time. I did not have one before, so that should be a nice little addition. Keep the upper intake cool and give me a little more clearance for everything underneath the intake here. So intake, again, wrinkle powder coated, top plate powder coated, the hammered red. Looks freaking sweet. So there it is. I'm going to stop at this point with this, and I'm going to go ahead and get the transmission ready to go up in here. I just hope my trans jack will go high enough to get it up in there. I didn't even think about that. So yeah, hopefully I didn't screw that up. So I might as well get started. Okay, now we're finally into this rear axle. Got the 9-inch all tore apart, axles out, they're up there. Center section hanging off the cherry picker, so I got to pull that all apart and get the spool out, take some measurements off of it, get the new one ordered. This is all 31 spline, so everything's getting upgraded to 35 spline. So I'll be getting a measurement off that, get a length measurement on my shafts, so I can get those all ordered. And I think I'm gonna strip this all down and find somewhere to hot tank this whole axle, just get it completely cleaned inside and out. And what I'm doing right now is I'm running an anti-rat bar that's going to bolt to the studs on the side of the carrier over here. So I had to knock out the short studs, and I'm pulling in, pressing in some longer studs for this mounting bracket right here. That'll mount to the center section, and an anti-rat bar that I'm going to modify will bolt to that. So, dirty, stinky, but has to be done. Okay, gonna wrap this video up here. Just gonna give a once over on where we're at. Got some major parts ordered. I had talked to Quick Performance this morning, and I had ended up ordering a new center carrier for the 9-inch because mine had the smallest carrier bearing diameter, and the special spool to run 35 spline is nowhere to be found right now. So had to upgrade to an aftermarket center carrier, the bigger 3 1/4 carrier bearings, which is better, it's stronger. They're building me custom 35 spline axles. Outer flange is going to change the nub on it to fit my rotors, which is cool. And install kit and the spool, all that should have here in about a week and a half, 2 weeks probably. So I'll be on hold on the rear axle till then. But let's take a look and see where I'm at right now, and then we will put a stamp on this one. Okay, current status. There we go. There's a motor, intake, just started mocking up stuff. I loaned out some of my fuel system parts to a buddy, diagnose his vehicle, so I can't finish that up till I get my parts back, but no big deal. So I'm basically ready to put the trans in it. I'm going to pull this cross member out. It is not going to work for my trans and transfer case setup for sure. So I got the trans on a cart. I'm going to bring it over here. I'm going to basically hang it from the cherry picker and then just hang it in here. Bolt it up, get a measurement for the converter to flex plate clearance, make sure I'm not smashing the pump. So that'll be what I tackle next. I got all my parts for my anti-rat bar. So there's the do-it-yourself cross member that will go on the bottom of the frame rail once I get the drivetrain established in here. Here is the radius arms, and on top of it, that's the anti-rat bar. That I'm going to have to cut that end off. It takes a bushing. I got to lengthen it to work with this wheelbase. And when I lengthen it, I'm not going to run the bushing that they give with the kit. I'm going to convert it to a Heim or a Johnny joint, because I want the most articulation as possible out of this before inducing any bind. And the nice thing about this one here, this is the kit that has the bracket that bolts to the center section on the diff. So it's going to put this anti-rat bar as close to the center of the chassis as possible and follow the drive shaft. So it's going to work, I'm hoping, pretty much like a skid plate for the dry shaft, since this dry shaft's going to be quite a bit longer than the Bronco 2 one was. So in my mind, it's going to work out pretty sweet, but we'll see what reality has to say. I got the rear axle obviously completely disassembled. There's leaf springs. I got to clean these up, get them core sealed. I got all the stuff for the radius arms. Everything has been cleaned, rust cleaned off of them, core sealed, and then painted. I've been using this, man, this stuff looks really good. I bought this WD-40 rust remover. I've been pouring stuff, nuts, bolts, brackets, all this kind of crap. Pouring them in there, let them soak overnight, and they come out like brand new fresh metal. The lower coil buckets, got these all cleaned up and painted. Those are ready to go on. U-bolts, probably have to get new U-bolts. Clean up the U-bolt plates. And here is the axle. She's gutted. Gonna get this thing all cleaned up inside and out. Take it down to bare metal. And then basically while I'm waiting for the parts to come in for the axle, I can at least get the rear suspension in. I can get these cleaned up, change those bushings, hang the springs, hang the axle loosely, and then I can work with that, get some stuff done there. But I think before I do that, basically the front axle is ready to go in. All the duff brackets are hanging off the chassis. Everything's good to go there. So I guess I'm ready. I can make the front a roller. So I think I will get on that too. So anyway, so we'll call that a wrap. Making big progress, but I got a feeling I'm not gonna make my my new deadline, which is the trip we were taking the second week of July. There's just a lot of work to do here, and I still have to get this thing painted. I got the windshield cut out of it so I can clean up a little bit of rust and stuff in the channel here. I got to clean all that up, and then once the body goes back on the chassis, then we'll worry about painting. I've already talked to my painter. He's basically ready for me, so at least I hope he is when I finally call. Hey, Dennis. So yeah, a lot of work to be done here. That's a wrap. Appreciate it. Like all the comments. Appreciate it. The likes, everything. You know, try to make some cool content for you guys, something different. So anyway, we will catch you on the next one later.